Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your gracious host and guide along the way. And today's exciting episode picks up again where we left off last week. That is to say, after that conversation me and Jay had there, then the next night, which we had stolen away again, managed to get some time just to ourselves. We started up another conversation, and as you hear right in the very beginning of this, we didn't get very far the night before. In the conversation, he said he had 2 questions, and we only really got to deal with one. So today we continue on talking a little bit about magic, and we delve into a whole bunch of other topics. So without further ado, let's just roll straight on in to the next second part of this 3-part series of Helsinki conversations. We recorded this in Helsinki, and it was so much snow everywhere, and it was so cold. And as I'm recording this in Haugesund, Norway, we're having a storm which intermittently has snow in it and hail and rain, so it's just right on the border of zero. So it's aptly bringing back the memories of an icy cold winter in Helsinki, Finland. Here, Jay Gilligan and yours truly in the second Helsinki conversation. Enjoy.
So yes, I had 2 questions I was going to ask you yesterday. We only got to 1.
Yeah, we only got to 1.
So
and actually, I must say, after we spoke for like more than an hour, and I can't quite remember what the question was, because you kept sort of setting up, and then there was questions being asked, and then you kept sort of going on. This brings me around to asking the question. What was the question that you asked last time, just to sum it up so I can put it in the title of the last one?
the question was around this idea that for Dani DaOrtiz, as an example, the character was intrinsic to the technique. You couldn't separate them out.
Yeah.
And I find that really fascinating, this idea that, because people like to talk about character as something separate or something else, right? They always say like, yeah, that's really good, but you could work on your character. And it's like, well, hold on. If my character is, again, linked so tightly interwoven with the, when I say technique, it can be anything. It can be the effect.
Yeah, it can be the effect, or it can be the juggling sequence that you're going to show, yeah.
Exactly. Then you can't really talk about character as a separate thing. You can focus on it, but that's not generally what people are doing when they talk about it. They kind of imply that you can slap something else on top of it. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, that's not, at least in the case of Dani DaOrtiz, his character, his apparent chaotic nature, his touching, his pointing, his mannerisms, they are the exact technique by which the thing works. And I don't mean his skill as a magician, his technical skill. I'm talking about the psychological effect that makes the people follow it makes the people do what he wants them to do.
And this is like when I spoke then in the last time for that question, I spoke about the character, and then you have the material and the structure of it. It's like that the character that's what they're doing. Then all of this, I think also of that as 3-dimensional showmanship.
Yeah.
It's like there are 3 dimensions to what you do, and those things are connected to having ideas in your thing and making emotional connections and the actual physical stuff that you do on stage. And that, to me, is those 3 dimensions, and you can become a 2-dimensional thing if you don't have a character at all. So the character is like is vanishingly little, and it disappears away. So there are some skills in a certain structure, and the result, more often than not, is that as you watch that act, you don't feel emotionally engaged, because the character is the aspect of what you do which the audience most easily can connect to. You could potentially connect to... Yeah, because even I was going to say you can potentially connect to whether this guy manages to throw the ring up onto the stick, if that's what you do. But even there, if you don't think that's a real person, that he genuinely wants to do it, and then when he triumphs at throwing the ring on the stick, you go, oh my god, that is amazing. That's partly because you're sharing him, and that's the character that really reaches out to move you like that. But if the character comes out and is a real nice guy and then he just keeps going, whoa guys, but he doesn't have any actual physical skills and he doesn't actually do something, after a while you'll go, this guy is a bit of a, he asks for a lot of attention but he's got nothing to show, and then after a while you start to dislike him because he doesn't give it to you, or that he comes out and has lots of skills not in the structure, then that also. So that's kind of like three-dimensional showmanship. And in a well-balanced human being in the world, you feel like, oh, this is a nice person, like, oh, going great, like, oh, we had a good conversation and he made me feel good, and then he showed me something cool. And that's when you see what is an example of Dani DaOrtiz, that he has all these three things. He has an incredibly likable character, and like you say, he's doing all this thing. He's moving around, he's pushing people and going, come closer, do this, and he's touching people, and he's leaning over the table and doing all this sort of stuff. And his character is interwoven into the way that he behaves. Is completely interwoven with his material, like how he presents it, and also the technique to make it done. And the ideas that he presents in his acts are expressed clearly and whatever. So you feel this is an authentic character because how he behaves, what he says, and what he does fully resonates with what's inside of him. You feel this is all coming directly from him. It's truthful and happening in the moment. And that to me is a three-dimensional human being, three-dimensional character in a show, and it's what I think of as three-dimensional showmanship.
So maybe the good takeaway from that is to remember that I liked your way of talking about going from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions, but maybe to say in another way, you have these 3 pillars, and just to remember that they are connected. And so when people say,
it's actually one thing, yeah. That's
what I
why
mean,
I have the triangle, because it's not like you take away one of them and it collapses to a line.
Yeah.
You take away 2 of them and you have a point.
Yeah.
And it isn't the same. And the fourth dimension that makes the triangle into a pyramid is the audience. It's the attention of the audience. So that, like, if there is nobody watching, then it also isn't quite actually 3-dimensional. Then it's 3 points, and it becomes fully 3-dimensional when you do this in relation to an audience. That's kind of, and then it actually becomes a pyramid. So it's actually 3-dimensional. So I didn't say that before, but
I mean, so we can focus on different aspects, and we can say, oh, hey, Frodo, I saw your act, and your character. So we can speak to it. We can speak, but we have to remember when we speak to something there, we're focusing on part of the whole.
Yes.
And I think that was kind of more, maybe that's a good way to articulate what I was trying to express about Dani DaOrtiz. Is what I found so fascinating was that it was his mannerisms of his personality that were necessary to actually even make the whole thing work.
Yeah.
It wasn't a separate little
So the interesting
detail.
thing I think there as well is to go to those people who nobody maybe will be able to see him do this talk where he does a 3-hour talk about his 10-minute act. So Vanishing Ink, a cool magic shop, whatever, asks Dani DaOrtiz, we want you to talk about this incredible act that you did on TV on Fool Us with Penn and Teller. And then he goes, I'm going to talk about it, and you can just sort of show the act and you can stop and start. And then he goes, there's so much that's going on in my act that I will first talk about the technique of the stuff that I do in brief. Then I will talk about the theories of what I will do, and then I will talk about I can't remember what the last kind of thing, but he's separated out into different things.
Well, he talks about the performance itself, kind of how they combine.
Yeah. And then after he's talked for that for 2 hours and 2 hours or so, then he gets to the point where he starts to play the thing. And now it's just so that when he goes, and then he goes, and this is where I use this technique, and you can see how I'm setting up here before, and now they're all applauding, but I'm getting her to look at the card, so that later on it'll look like she has just thought of it and never actually looked at the card, and you see all this sort of stuff. So that's really interesting to see, to go into so much depth,
to realize that there's a bunch of different layers that you're working on, and it was nice to see him have to separate them out because there was too much information for him to communicate.
I can't stop and start because I'm going to play you 10 seconds and then I'm going to talk 25 minutes to explain a point, and by that stage you've lost the flow of the other thing. So it's like,
but also to realize that even though he did that because he has a lot to share out of his work, we all do.
Yeah.
And that normally when we talk about things, we probably, like when me and you talk about things with each other, Also because we normally have limited time, right? We don't live close to each other. We don't get to meet each other very often. So when we do get to talk, it's limited time, and we do try to maybe cram all that information into one sort of larger conversation.
Yeah.
It was nice to see him separated out.
Right.
Well, so it was kind of funny that you said we had the first question yesterday and you couldn't quite remember what it was because there was such a rolling conversation or lots of different sort of tangents. And that's because, I was trying to build a context by which to kind of get to the heart of it, which I think you really did. And so, of course, I have a second question, and it's going to be the same process.
But I was also just
I have to build the context, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah. But I was also just touching because when we said, whenever you then say, "Oh, Frodo," or like Jay, I'd like to talk about your character. Yeah. When we started the process of a reflex or whatever, what's your character?
Okay,
and
sure.
I'm doing that because I always do that, and then now at least you have that full understanding that we're not talking about a character to slap on, and you basically went, "Oh, my character is just I'm a juggler and I do juggling." And I didn't balk or get surprised or anything, but that guided me going, cool, so that's what we do. Like if you were going like, "Oh, I'm Jay, but I really wanted to be a fireman," I go, okay, well, that's going to be, how do we make that happen, or whatever,
right?
But so we ask each other those kinds of questions and whatever. And now this idea that it's three-dimensional, you always have the three character and structure and all the stuff you do, and then always what's the experience for the audience? That's what makes it three-dimensional. And that's what I was thinking. We talked about this beforehand, but I can't remember now if this was the day before we started to record. This thing that no matter what it is that you, as soon as you say something about an act, that thing that I now say, okay, I saw you do it, like we're going to talk about the character. Now, that thing that we talk about is less than the act. Because the act always is all things at the same time. It's what you do, it's how you do it, it's the structure of how you do it, and it is how the audience reacted or how you included the audience. So all those things are always going on. So when I say we're going to talk about the character, it's like you are pinning a butterfly to the box. You learn many things, but it stops to fly and it does all that. But you can see all the details in it, but you stopped it in its flow. And if you could take the pin back out and it was alive again, then you could study those other things. And that's kind of what we could do when you talk about a three-dimensional thing. And whenever you point out anything about anything, any idea what you think a poem is, anything that you pull from an essay that you've read or a film that you've seen that is artful enough to feel like it comments on more than just what the story actually is, then when you say that, it's going to be less than the whole, because that whole thing will be all those things at the same time, and any theory or any map of that thing will be less than the whole. And that whole, even if you somehow even theoretically manage to describe the whole, you will not exhaust what that thing is because of the point of view of somebody else who brings all that they have in themselves to what it is that they see. And whatever it is that we watched, if it's a crystal or if it's the TV, that thing has a backside that you don't actually see. Yeah. And that is something else, and somebody else will see those things in the same way that when you fall in love with someone, you say that love makes you blind to their flaws. But also what it is that you do is that we all have flaws. I'm a terribly flawed person to try to be with, and I applaud and I'm surprised that my wife can put up with all the stuff that I whatever. But in falling in love, it's not just that you don't see those, that you choose not to, or you don't see the flaws. It's that you see all those things that are wonderful about that person, and particularly in the beginning you don't see anything else because you see all of those things. So, and other people see it and they go, yeah, but she or he is like that, and they go, and he has these flaws or whatever. But in that moment of love, you just see those specific kind of things. So there's always more to it, and you can find and pick it out, or you just see in the show, or you've done something and you can completely pick it apart, but you might still have loved it.
No, that's super good. That's super. I'm glad you kind of brought out those details there, because this question kind of comes from that place, and it comes from the context of the first question. So we can kind of build on all that here.
Oh,
and
good,
so the thing is, the question I have, I just want to say that I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
But as it normally goes when I ask you a question, I love it that you have a system in your life. You have this showmanship system. It's a sort of a system of how to understand the work in the world,
a system,
right?
Yeah.
So when I throw you a question, I don't say you easily answer it, but you definitely always find where it lands inside your system. And I really appreciate that. Like, you can pretty quickly triangulate, oh, Jay asked me this, and I kind of triangulate the position of where that question is, what points that question's poking at. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I think the answer on the surface is going to be pretty simple, pretty easy, pretty obvious. But hopefully the question will be a jumping off point to a discussion of kind of a deeper discussion of the underlying, things involved. So, because I also have my own idea of the answer to the question. Of course, it's really simple. It's like this. Ever since I was a kid, when I first started juggling, when I was 8 years old, I started juggling, and I guess I could uncover this more. Maybe I should uncover this more as I get older. But to discover. Whoever taught me juggling definitely taught me with a performance framework in mind, which I didn't realize at the time. I thought I was just learning to throw and catch 3 balls, but definitely I've told the story a lot, but it's like throw 1, throw 2, throw 3, and now smile. So there's always that smile thing, and it was just ingrained in me, this idea of like, well, of course we're going to show this to someone else. But pretty quickly after I learned, the thing I heard the most from everybody, and they were all older than me, was, but Jay, you can't just juggle. And they were talking about doing a show. You can't just juggle. This is the phrase I heard for years when I was growing up. But you can't just juggle. I've even heard that when I've been, last year or 5 years ago. I've heard it a lot. I know what they mean. I have my own interpretation of what that phrase means. You can't just juggle in regards to doing a performance. What they mean is, to paraphrase or to guess or whatever, what they're saying is you have to be entertaining. You can't just go on stage and do the skill. You have to package the skill. You have to make the skill accessible or relatable. You have to sell it to the audience. You have to connect with the audience, right? And so, but the thing that always sticks in my mind, thinking back from when I was a kid, was, you can't just juggle. And so so the question for you is, because the fun thing that you said on the first question was that your dad was a little bit pragmatic about what you would do on stage. He was into the construction and the mechanisms of the magic tricks. And so it wasn't some sort of overt conceptual show that you were doing. It was more like your dad would tinker in his garage, and I say that with the utmost respect of tinkering in his garage.
But that is what he does.
And then he would go on stage and share those wonderful little moments with an audience. And so that's kind of funny too, that it's in that way it's a little bit, it's not conceptual, it's not grander than just that.
But to me, then it becomes similar to the juggling that you're home. You're practicing your skill.
That's
then
what I'm
you
saying.
take that out. Then you go, look at this cool thing that I have /do, or he has made a mechanism. And there'd be a little story. Would you pick a card or something comes out and this next.
That's why I thought of it. Because you brought that up and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I was talking about. So what is your relationship to, if you get my meaning here, what's your relationship to, you can't just juggle?
When you said it, it's like there's part of the way to go that they go, oh, you need to also be entertaining. And to me, that has that sort of, when you say it like that, I think of it almost like it's flavored with a certain negativity or whatever. It's also have to go, hey, and you have to wear a spangly suit and you have to do something like tell one-liners or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you also, in that, when you were doing it later on, you said like in the same description of it, we're going to go back and look at it, but you said something like, oh, you need to sort of somehow present it to them or make it connect to them.
Yep.
I didn't use the word connect.
No, I did. I said you have to connect with their audience.
So that's that thing that I go, because you can just juggle, and in reflex, you just juggled. There was no, like, you talked, but all of the talking and everything was to frame the juggling. And like we've talked about on previous podcasts, it was so that by the time that you do your most abstract stuff, people would really start to get what it was. And you can do it with, you could also do it abstractly, where you're just starting with something simple and then it builds bigger and bigger. It's like if you do 7 balls first, and then afterwards you do 4 balls for a little bit, and then you do some ball spinning, and then if it's just a jumble of things, and then you do hula hoop for a little bit, and then you stop and you do some isolation, and then you go. Then the people don't know, what is this? How is it actually going? But if you put it, you just have to take the audience's experience of what you do. And we all like things that are structured nicely, like a movie that needs to be well-paced. And it needs to...
You can't just show a bunch of pictures.
You can't just show a bunch of pictures. And then, but you can. Like things like La Jetée, or whatever it's called, the movie that inspired Army of the 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis, the Terry Gilliam movie. That movie is told in still pictures. There's a French movie, and of course it's art house, so you can kind of tell it in pictures, and that's what we sort of do. You do a little act, and then you take that emotion from that act, and it goes into the next kind of bit. But you always have to keep, what is it that this is expressing to the audience, if there is an audience there. Because if there isn't an audience, then you can do what you want, and then you're practicing and you're just going with your own flow. And then it is for yourself. And I was wondering, when you were talking about, because I learned juggling from the point of view that somebody was going to watch this. But as I toured around the UK and Europe with the Cascade magazine, with the juggling European juggling magazine, and looked at the back to see where there was workshops or whatever, meetings and gatherings and juggling jams and whatever. And I went from town to town going, this is here, and they have an Interrail ticket, so I'd take it to the next town because there's something there on a Tuesday, and then you go somewhere else. So where's it on a Wednesday? And you go there and meet someone. And when I was doing that, I would say that most of those people there were not jugglers for performing, because the actual real sort of performers, or even street performers or whatever, didn't juggle for the sheer passion of it, of just hanging out. There was always some, and maybe this is a gross oversimplification.
No, it's not. It's a real tangled mess of the evolution of the hobbyist or amateur into what we can say the professional. I mean, it's just we don't even hardly have words or language to talk about it. But
it's a struggle. It's also in magic. Some of the greatest magicians or innovators of magic are amateur magicians, because he's a lawyer or he's a truck driver, but then he comes out at the card table and blows everyone away with incredible techniques.
But maybe to be more specific, or just for this, for fun, for this conversation, we don't have to define it. Like, I get your point, obviously, like that if you're a lawyer and you do magic on the side, and just by saying on the side, then necessarily you're an amateur because your main gig is you're a lawyer. I mean more towards the attitude or the approach to what you're doing. Because it goes back, which is what you mean. Because it goes back to that idea.
I have an episode about this as well. Because for exactly that thing. It's like, you can be a showman and only do it once a week, but you live it and breathe it or whatever.
Or also just the way you personally relate to what you do. And just from a very simplistic example of, hey, I'm going to learn this juggling trick for myself, just to have the physical or the mental experience of doing it. Or I can learn this trick and I can also envision someone might see it.
Yeah.
And that can also be just a very simplistic definition of amateur versus professional. In terms of, like, we could define, if we wanted to kind of define, I don't know, professional is the wrong word because it always implies money, but it's more that there's going to be an audience, there will be a viewer. And because you can do these things without people watching you. And that's kind of more to the core.
People do that with guitar and stuff too.
That's more to the core of what I mean.
All these people who just love to play the guitar. Totally. They do it for hours. Maybe they do it an hour every day. Not 7 hours like a concert guitarist, but so that you're passionate about guitar and you watch all the documentaries and listen to all the albums. And
so maybe it's not as much about money as it's about intention, right?
Passion and intention.
Yeah. And so I just say that's such a tangled mess of intention. When does it flip over into, I want to show this to someone else, but at the same time, because me and you are both passionate people about the skills that we practice. I mean, that's part of our life, is that we practice these skills separate from the performing, separate from the money, separate from the intention. It's not separate from the passion. That's what drives it. but it flips back and forth all the time is what I mean. And it's very muddy. It's very muddled. It's unclear for me many times why I'm investigating something or why I'm learning something. It's not immediately obvious beyond the momentary utility of like the joy I get from practicing or the joy I get from finding out some new thing. So that's why it's a hard conversation to talk about this idea of performing or not performing, because we're constantly doing that all the time. We're constantly doing things to perform and to not perform. Yeah. Like we're doing things for ourselves, and for others. So this idea of you can't just juggle, I just want to say, and what I want to kind of get to later on eventually, because I think there's a few things I still want to poke at before we get there.
I feel like I haven't actually answered. I would just
the larger no, absolutely.
And circle
but the bigger thing is this question haunts me because I still struggle with it constantly. This idea that you can't just juggle, and without getting stuck on all those different definitions of words we can get stuck on, it means because you can just juggle. We've said that already now. You could just juggle. But more to the point, there's maybe an aspect of it that's like you can't just juggle, as if maybe it goes back to the bad self-esteem circus artist thing of like juggling is not enough. And like literally, and then I go, no, but juggling does have value in it on its own. You just have to get the people to see it, but then that comes back to you can't just juggle. You can just juggle, but you have to have the people see the just juggling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But some of this also, it comes down to like using the analogy of music. It's not just enough to go out there and play the accordion. You can't just be noodling about and just play notes and do a little bit of this and play half a song and go into something else. You need to have
you could possibly do that in the right context, and maybe that's what this discussion is also about. Is context.
If people were there just to be exploring new sounds or explore improvised music or music created in the moment on an instrument you don't even know or whatever, like you could get some interest, but then it all implies that they then are interested, because if you go to a juggling festival and you just go out there and you just, without comment, with music on or not, just show a bunch of random stuff that you do and you just jam, and most people would probably be excited, and they would already start to get excited and they see what you try, and if you didn't do it and you do it again and you go like that, would become incredible because they already have an interest and an understanding and appreciation for the language.
Specific context.
Whilst if you're doing music, not only do you it's not a good idea, even though there could be a very specialized context where you're just pushing the buttons.
Yeah.
And then you go out and you could go, and I could play a song that I have made.
Yep.
And you go, okay, this is something.
Right.
But if I want to really make them go, then I play ABBA or I play Britney Spears.
Right.
So I'm piggybacking on something else, and then everyone starts to clap along and everyone goes, I love this song, oh, that's a funny version of it or whatever, like, which is what kind of Weird Al Yankovic or something. It's like piggybacking on all these other kind of things, and what a lot of performers do, and they do like, oh, we're doing some juggling, and I just put on AC/DC and I go like that, the rock and roll, and then
I always had the but this is perfect.
There's layers of how to get people to pull it into what you do, and I don't know exactly how that sort of translates with juggling, with like you do eat the apple, or that you juggle a chainsaw, like something that's very like it's not. But within juggling, that might be something like putting on the track that you've.
No, it's funny. Stick with the AC/DC thing, because there is a quintessential example I have in my life, which was, I remember growing up, I had a really formative moment when there was a juggler who was going to do some performance, and everybody was super hyped and really excited. Oh man, he's going to go do the thing now. Oh yeah, what? And I didn't know him. What did he do? Oh, he does this amazing Indiana Jones juggling act. And in my mind, I'm not joking. I mean, I was like 14 or something, and I was trying to envision like Indiana Jones juggling. So he's going to juggle the whip, and he's going to have the bag of sand, and he's going to have the Ark of the Covenant, and he's going to juggle. No, you know what he did? He comes out, he wears a fedora, he has some khakis on, he plays the Indiana Jones theme music, and then he juggles the juggling clubs, and then that's the limit of the that's the limit of the theme. And that really...
I tell you, I for real did an Indiana Jones straitjacket escape?
No, I didn't know that.
It was based on the same thing. No fedora though.
Okay.
No leather jacket. No
that,
khakis.
Right.
No, it was just
the theme
me
song?
in the tuxedo pants that I had, and my dad put the straitjacket on, and we played in the belly of the steel beast from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Okay.
That was my Indiana Jones act by that standard, and he was even more advanced than me.
But the thing is, yeah, absolutely. But the funny thing is, I mean, I get what you're saying, but the funny thing is, that does completely address the comment, you can't just juggle. Because this person, they didn't just juggle. He wore the fedora. He had the bullwhip on his belt.
Yeah.
He had the theme song. Done. Cross off the list.
And it is also that one that like, you go, well, I got to give it to him because that is one step further. It is not just you in your whatever pants you happen to wear and then you do a couple of juggling tricks. It's like you come out and you're going, there is one more thing going on here, and whoever described that to you had described it with you and had thought that was cool, because everyone at that time in the 80s or whatever this was, they loved Indiana Jones, and just to dress up and play that music,
to
which
reference
is a great thing. So you reference that, you're going like, I like this music, I think Harrison Ford is cool, and this is, I don't know, whatever it is that you take with that, and you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And you haven't advanced so far. Like we spoke about how every year in circus school or everywhere, when you meet the young artists, they have a certain idea of what it is. And they are like right at the limit of that thing. But me as an old hat have been in it for so long, you kind of see, I was also like that when I was 17 or whatever. I thought that this was the killer thing, and like I sort of said, it's like going, oh man, my act is all right, but if I just can do 20 throws of 4 balls Mills mess, then people are just going to peek out and it's just going to be the best act in the world. And anyway, maybe
another way to no, you reminded me of a thing now. Maybe another way to kind of attack this question, this question or this discussion is, David Blaine said something that really sticks with me to this day. It really made an impact when I heard this. And it was a couple years ago I heard this, but because when I first saw the David Blaine Street Magic special, when it came out on TV, I was like, man, what's wrong with this guy? Because Frodo, I took my lesson well. I didn't just juggle. You can't just juggle. So I did a bunch of other stuff, man, in my life. I did more than just juggling. I didn't do Indiana Jones, but I did other things for sure.
That was already done.
Yeah. So other movies I did,
both in Norway and by this
exactly. It's been played out. So when I saw the Street Magic special, and of course we talked about before where the genius of the special, of course, is just that they put the reactions of the audience members in focus instead of the tricks. That was the genius of the Street Magic special. But I'm talking specifically about David Blaine's character, which is I'm focusing on that one aspect of the whole.
Yeah.
And so basically I was like, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong? Like literally what's wrong with him? He if you go back and watch some of those early videos of him, he can't even form a complete sentence. He seems to be so antagonized. He seems to be so dramatically just complete, like, look. But he doesn't say the K on look. He's just like, look. Look, watch. Look, watch. Like, this guy can't even talk. He can't even form the full word, let alone, set up a story or present the trick. He barely mumbles. He barely mumbles, and then he'll make the coin vanish, right? And then the people freak out. And he says, and then I heard this interview with him, and he said a couple years ago, and it really sticks in my mind. He said, well, here's the thing. That was on purpose. I did that on purpose like that, because most people, they want to connect the effect of the magic trick to some sort of emotional connection, so that when the coin vanishes, you care. Because if you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, here's a coin, now it's gone, they just go, okay. Oh, what? Like, who cares? Like, oh, the coin's gone. I didn't care about the coin in the first place because the coin came out of nowhere. Yeah. But so that's the cliche. Oh, hey, Frodo, this coin, my grandfather gave this to me when I was 5 years old. He pulled it out of my ear, and that's why I'm here on this Vegas stage today, because when I was 30 years ago, my grandfather got me into magic, and now I'm here in Las Vegas, right? That's the cliche narrative. Yeah. So then when that coin that your grandfather gave you 30 years ago, when it vanishes, then hopefully, this cliche example, then the audience goes, oh wow, where did it go? Because I care about that coin, like, and it's a stronger effect, right?
Yeah. Or you borrow the money from the audience member and
exactly, or a ring,
tension.
a wedding ring
Yeah, yeah.
is so there's an emotional connection to the object. That's the point. But what David Blaine said, which was really cool, he's like, hey, look, here's the deal. If I'm actually quote unquote magic, if I can actually do magic and I can really make this coin disappear, I don't need to tell you it's from my grandfather.
Yeah.
I just take the coin and I make it disappear for real.
Yeah.
I do it for real. And so I don't talk about it. I don't do, and that reminds me of this, you can't just juggle, right? Because it's like saying to David, you can't just do magic. You can't just make it disappear. But what I loved was he drills down to the heart of the premise, which is I'm going to make this coin disappear. And I think a lot of times, and again, I'm a juggler talking about magic, so I'm completely out of turn.
Yeah,
but if you're really going to believe and say, or I mean, that's the premise. You say, I'm going to take this coin and make it disappear. And to make you care about it, I'm going to tell you it's from my grandfather and weave this whole story of when I was 5, he pulled it out of my ear and I started to cry and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm in Las Vegas. It kind of undermines not undermines, but it doesn't really enhance the fact if that coin actually vanished, nobody cares about your grandfather. People are just going to go, Frodo actually made a coin vanish.
Yeah.
And that's what David was trying to drill down to. And that purity of the premise of what you're doing, I thought that was just, that really struck me that he committed so fully to the premise instead of kind of giving up or...
I mean, I can hear where he's coming from, and I don't think that you need to tell about your grandfather or whatever, but that is one technique. And also I also frequently think or say that whatever it is that I say that this is how it should be done, whenever I do that, then there will always be somebody who makes a career out of exactly doing the opposite.
Totally, yeah.
And usually, or frequently anyway, that person who is doing that other thing, that is a person who has usually thought it through and been in the game for a while.
Right.
So you have thought that through. Maybe he post hoc made that thing up because the thing went off and that was the limit of how he could speak and present it. Maybe it was that style. As when you see him in general, it wasn't when he's talking and when he's he can be an eloquent guy or whatever, but he is a pretty chilled and laid back kind of guy. So maybe 25 years ago that was one step further and he hadn't, this was early in his whatever, that some of it is true and some of it is also kind of like this was his style and whatever it was as well, like that it just caught on like a wildfire. But all sorts of specials when Paul Zenon made a street magic special in Britain earlier before, and it didn't explode in that same kind of way, even though there are some similarities between those two things. And whatever it was that he did, it just killed. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, I agree, like the fact that he had that in mind and had that intention, and to the specific people that he showed it to, all of those things came together in just the perfect way. That kind of presentation on the street to the kind of people that he was sort of hanging out with at the time, or when he walked up, it was the right presentation by the right guy at the right setting and the right time. And he did it with 100% conviction. Didn't even like, oh man, look. Right. Okay, yeah.
Gone.
Boom.
Done.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't need to say more.
No.
And he doesn't say that, but that's my silent script.
That's his,
on the
that's
radio.
his inner monologue.
Goes,
yeah.
He's just in the he's not doing ta-da.
No.
There's no sprinkling of dust. There's no. It's
that was the other thing he said. That was the other thing he said about the technique of this.
Yeah.
The other thing he said about the technique of never talking, or not talking much there at least, is when you do the effect, you just shut up. You just let there be silence, and you let the spectator fill in the silence, and they will, right?
It's so true.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
So you don't say "ta-da" because you don't need to. You just stand there and you look at them, and you look at them equally as confounded, and you go, "I don't know."
Hardcore, like pull no punches magic.
Yeah,
and then afterwards you leave it. Then there is this, like, they don't know what to do. They don't necessarily clap.
You don't tell them what to do. That's
they're just there and they're going like, what happened? And then they start to actually, and since you're not doing it, and Eugene Berger wrote in an essay somewhere, and he goes that the average magician is afraid of magic.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
why
yeah. I've heard this, yeah.
People do the magic trick,
And
and then almost immediately they stomp on it with a joke or with a comment, or they move on, or they go. They don't let it hang there.
No,
and Judenberger is making the point that it's in that moment that the magic solidifies in their mind. It's when you got to be brave.
Sit
there and be brave and go.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do comedy magic because if you stuff the trick up and they know what you did, then you can always just like do waka waka waka. It's just a joke. Hey, whoa, let me play the saxophone for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, not because I don't just do magic. I don't.
No, but
I
don't just do magic. No, but I mean, Dani DaOrtiz, the way he deals with that is he doesn't announce ahead of time what he's going to do. So it's just an improvisation. You don't know where it's going. So if it goes wrong over here, well, you can just keep going until it goes right or whatever. You know. Well, so one thing that you said a good thing there. So connecting this idea from David Blaine, why it connects to this thing of you can't just juggle. What really appeals to me about David Blaine's technique of, I'm going to do quote unquote again real magic. I'm really going to make
magic speak for itself.
The premise is this coin is going to disappear. He doesn't skip. So many of us performers, I think, I'm going to talk about myself, but so many of us, we skip ahead. So this thing, hey, Jay, I'm 10 years old. Hey, you can't just juggle. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if I just juggle, the audience is going to be bored. So I'm not just going to juggle. I don't even give juggling a chance. That's what I mean. And then when David Blaine's like, I'm not going to tell a story about my grandfather, what he means is he's daring to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to give magic a chance to have an effect. I'm gonna give the audience the benefit of the doubt that they might actually want to see what I'm gonna do. And I think that's been a monkey on my back for a lot of my teenage years of this thing. I'm like, you can't just juggle. It was really imprinted in me to the point where I'm like, man, if I just juggle or if I don't do something else to kind of not apologize for the juggling, but definitely to accompany the juggling, then nobody's gonna like it. And what I found out though, of course, in other moments of my life, and maybe some of the more successful moments in my life, is that the times when I did let the juggling, like you're saying, speak for itself, it kind of went better for me. So that's always a struggle that I've had to overcome, or I still wrestle with, like mentally sometimes, where I'm like, it's not that I have bad self-esteem about my work or juggling in general. I think, and just maybe we can on the record say this, that there is, it was Luke Wilson who always said that jugglers are the ones who are perpetuating our own worst stereotypes. So there's one of them which goes, people hate juggling. That's like always that's a stereotype. And it's like, well, people don't hate juggling. People also don't like juggling. They don't hate it or like it. It's not a thing to people. They're indifferent to it, and then you present it to them, and I was going to say, people also have like badges that says I hate card tricks or whatever at magic conventions or whatever, and they go, so you do, but everybody loves magic and juggling if that magic and juggling, as Eric Aubrey say, if it's in the genre of good. If it's good. If it's in the genre of good, then we love it. We like good things. I don't know if I like card magic as a general thing that I'm like going, we got to go and see someone's doing the card magic. Let me lean over and have a look. Because a lot of the time it is just like, here's a deck of cards, take one, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Was it this one? Yeah, man, I'm sweet. But then you see somebody who does it, like Juan Tamariz, or one of his pupils or whatever, good star students of Dani DaOrtiz. And card magic is the deck of cards becomes like the skateboard, where it's simple, but it's all endlessly complex in the hands of this guy. And although we're only picking cards and we're tearing and doing stuff with cards, it seems like a complete show. Well, so I think I get you. But so I think I can articulate something here, and hopefully with everything we've said before, this makes some sense. So basically, hey, you can't just juggle, and then the answer is yes, you can just juggle if it's good. Yeah. Like conceptually, that's what I'm dealing with. You can just juggle if it's good, and then the fun question is, how can that be good? Yeah. Well, and you can replace juggling with any word. Yeah. Right? And I always do. In showmanship, it's like we can talk about it. It's whatever it is that you're presenting. But I completely lost my thread here. I was going to say, going back to the music thing. Sure. If you are just starting out or whatever,
doing the troubadour style of if you're playing guitar or whatever, and if you're singing Let It Be and you're singing Let Me Entertain You and you're doing this, then you have then you know you have a hook on it and people are going to sing with you. But you have to have a different kind of charisma and a different kind of skill in songwriting for you to get up onto that stage and to captivate people with music that they've never heard before. And on the first presentation of it, but you can still stick to a normal song structure so that they recognize that at least. And then you go, well, that's it, with more charisma, with more skills in creating songs, creating acts, creating pieces of magic. Then you need something more to make that in the genre of good. It's easier to do something, okay, I'm going to juggle and I'm going to throw the ball on, I'm going to eat the apple at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like a cover song in juggling, and it will get them in even when you do it badly or whatever. And then you can create something new, like a new prop that you introduce into it. And then you need to be more skilled to be able to manipulate this thing, and you need to be able to connect to them through that way. And then maybe if you are even more, you have more thoughts and more ideas, you can be going out there and just noodling away on your guitar in front of them, and that they really get into it. And you're playing with silences, and you're playing with this, and you're changing rhythms, or you're going. But to captivate the general public with that, something very special needs to happen, and a very special atmosphere needs to be, like, if you do that in an art studio, and then that might work. But if you do it in a pub, it might be difficult because the setting is wrong as well. So there's that sort of, maybe there's a layer of there, and you're going, in that setting you can do it easily, and you can do like, and I'm always, this is part of one of my key things is how much culture, how much art, how much depth can I put into an act and still captivate the pub audience or so. Like, can you do the troubadour and somehow be completely original within that, as a goal? Or like, do you use the first couple of songs just like they do if you're playing contemporary classical music? To sell the tickets to that thing, they might do Beethoven's Fifth first and end up with the Nutcracker, and then in the middle do some contemporary music, which is more difficult to get a big audience for or whatever.
Well, I think you uncovered a really, really great thing there, which is maybe the other thing that always maybe made me. I was really antagonized. Clearly, I still not over it. Whenever I say it now to you, I still
my
say.
whole book is about. But do you have another job? That's part of the key.
Okay, sure. So I still, even when I say it now, I'm like, you can't just juggle. I still put that inflection on it. But basically, that's a great thing you uncovered there. It's not just what is said in that phrase of you can't just juggle. It's also what's unsaid in that phrase. And what's unsaid is, it's like you can't just juggle. And that's talking about whoever you're saying it to. That's talking about the person doing the juggling, for example. But there's so much unspoken baggage around that phrase with who, exactly what you said. Where is it going to be? Who's going to be watching you? What are you doing it for? What's your motivation? When are you going to do it?
What do you want from it?
What do you want from it? Right? So it's kind of weird. It's kind of a thing of like, oh, hey, you can't just juggle. You have to do something more. And it's like...
But that's that thing too, because it's implied that you can't just juggle. Okay, and we're going, fair enough. What is it that we need to do? Well, and then that person will say what their interpretation is. And I'm reminded again of Neil Gaiman, who says whenever somebody critiques your unfinished work, they will go, there's something about this section here that I don't understand, or this is not so good, doesn't flow, or whatever. And then when they find something that they are putting their finger on, they're usually right. There's something there to be discovered. And when they then share with you their advice as to what you're going to do to fix it or to whatever, then they're always wrong, or usually always wrong.
Right.
So he says that as advice. And when they go, you can't just juggle, but when that person then adds their thing going, you also got to have some pop music going in the background that people can connect to, because they are bored by the juggling, and then you can mime the song words. Or, I don't know. So and then they go, I don't know about that. And then you go, what is it? Oh no, you got to tell jokes at the same time, or you got to also be dancing while you do it, because your body is kind of a bit still, and you're losing that potential. So everybody will have their own thing to what else you could be doing or whatever. So that's also implied in that you can't do it enough. Juggling is not enough. But then from everybody's point of view and everybody's viewpoint or whatever, that extra thing, like, what is it? So I then go, the challenge is, of course, then to go, well, I can't just juggle, like just juggle with no structure, with no, that's why I started going on about this with playing an accordion and not play a song.
I get you.
That's like,
and then it's a good
just
example.
Playing the accordion.
Yeah.
But you got to play a song, or there's got to be, that noodling's got to build into something that goes, then maybe you do it and like
something relatable. Yeah.
I mean, if you're just playing the same 3 notes over and over again, then it's going, oh, this is totally boring. But if that builds like Philip Glass, like, or whatever, or Reich, like, and you just go, and this, in the beginning you don't quite get it, but all of a sudden you're pulled into this thing with the minimal changes, and it goes, oh, okay, and this is an incredible thing. It's the biggest thing since.
Well, definitely for me, one of my, because I heard, like I said, I heard this phrase when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, whatever. Can I just say one really fast, another little diversion, but I want to get back to what I was going to say there, is that I did this one show in Auch, this big circus festival in France. I did a solo show there. It was a 1 hour long solo show of juggling. And I had this this performer, I'll tell you later who it was, but we'll just say this one performer came up to me after the show outside the theater, and he said, but you it was 1 hour of juggling. You juggled for an hour. And he just couldn't comprehend, because I didn't tell jokes, I didn't dance, I didn't sing, I didn't for an hour you juggled. And he just kept repeating that to me.
And inflection, positive or negative? Or
no,
just
negative.
Mind blow?
No, negative.
Oh,
like,
negative.
Completely
Oh.
like you can't do that. Like what? Like you just.
That's funny, because yesterday you were like going, when you went to the juggling convention, as soon as that person started telling a joke or pulled out one of those felt rings and did some chapography, totally. You'd be going like, boring.
Yeah. Next,
next. Get the hook out here. We'd like, show us some tricks. It's like.
But it was just even funny that like I had gotten to the place in my career. I mean, you don't just go to Osh. I mean, you don't just rock up there and do a show if you want to. You gotta build a career to get there, right?
Yeah.
So I go on this journey through my life of not just juggling, Frodo.
Yeah.
And I get to the point where I can present my work.
I'm gonna just juggle because these guys understand it, and then some crazy juggler stands there as well.
That's kind of my point, though, is that I don't think I was just juggling, right? Like I had played the game. I played the game with all the tropes, man, with the music and the costume and the composition and the politics and the marketing and the title. I mean, all these things are not just juggling, right? And I managed to get to that place to have people see, to even have this person see my show is such a struggle, a mountain to climb from my 8-year-old self who can't just juggle.
Yeah.
And then I go do this show of 1 hour of juggling. I mean, admittedly, I didn't do any other circus techniques in the show than juggle, but if you ask me, I mean, you've seen my work, man. You know when we say, oh, you're going to juggle for an hour, you know now that you met me, that's going to be okay. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it was just hilarious that this guy came and was like, but you just... He didn't say just. He goes, you juggled for an hour. And like he just couldn't understand how that could be possible.
And when he calmed down, could he say what he thought that you should have done, or what did he intimate what it was that the show was lacking?
We can just say maybe in an easy way that you had mentioned, if I can say that, or you mentioned recently you saw a Cirque de Soleil on TV, and you couldn't maybe fully relate to maybe the aesthetic or the style or the tropes that's going on in that kind of genre right now.
Yep.
I think it was the same for him. Like he came to see my show and was just like, this is not what's happening in my world. And I think he put himself in my position, and he was thinking, because he was a juggler, and he said, I think he didn't say this, but if I kind of, think back on it, he was kind of saying, if I did what you did, I would be shot kind of thing. Like he just couldn't believe that I could, quote unquote, get away with that.
He was like a commercial performer or whatever.
No, well, anyway,
Okay,
but it was just kind of funny.
interesting.
It was just kind of funny, this thing of like, even when I tried I built my career of not just juggling. I always believed in juggling, and juggling was the main thing. But even then, when I got to that kind of quote unquote peak at that moment, it was still just juggling.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, what I was going to say is when I heard this phrase first, I was 8, 9 years old, and my first response was to well, not Indiana Jones, but honestly, it was to put on I think I had a red bowler hat. I had red sequined suspenders and a red sequined bow tie. And what music? I think I used the music Cats or something. I recognizable music. I think it was from the musical Cats or something. And it was. And that was kind of my first step. That was my first step of like, oh, okay, I can't just juggle. So like, I have to acknowledge that people are going to look at me. Therefore, I'll wear something special, and I'm going to play this song that other people have heard before, which you've already mentioned now a few times. And so that was kind of step one of like, how do you advance from you can't just juggle. And what I wanted to share a little story about John Gilkey. Because this was quite recent, a couple years ago. So, there was the Cirque de Soleil show La Nuba down in Florida, and it closed after 10 years. Anthony Gatto was in that show for a little bit of time. And they opened, at the time of the story, they were going to open a new show called Drawn to Life. And now that show is open, playing down there in Florida. And it's a collaboration between Cirque du Soleil and Disney Animation Studios. And I'm pretty obsessed with Cirque du Soleil, you could say. And so I was pretty excited. I loved La Nuba, one of the best shows I've seen. Franco Dragon, classic, golden age of Cirque. And like I say, Anthony Gatto was in the show. And so I was pretty excited to hear that, okay, La Nuba's closing. That's sad, but they're going to make a new show. What's the new show? So I was getting all the information. I'm reading the website, the press releases, and seeing the little press event preview of the acts on YouTube. And I was pretty obsessed. And so I noticed that there was a bunch of text, a bunch of writing about what the show was going to be about. And it was a collaboration with Disney Animation Studios. So Cirque du Soleil was going to interpret a lot of this animation material or theme. It was a theme of like hand-drawn animation, golden age of Disney animation. And the main character was going to be a pencil. Oh, yeah. And the pencil, and then they show a picture of the costume, and it's like a guy wearing a hat that's like a pink like eraser. And then he has like a pinstripe suit, like, the ridges on like a pencil. And then, you can imagine the socks and the shoes making this illusion that there's a pencil standing on its end. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was just looking at this and I'm like, there is no difference between this and Indiana Jones juggling routine and my red bowler hat with the Cats music. And I was so confused. And as a language in my world where I come from, we call this kind of style youth circus. I don't know if that's relatable to you, but like the local youth circus going to do it it's the spring presentation for the parents, and it is just that deep or shallow or deep. I mean, no problem. Your kid is there. They're gonna play the Lion King, and so you tack a little yellow tail on them when they do their cartwheel. It's the end of the year show, and it was the Lion King routine with acrobatics. Cool, but we're talking Cirque du Soleil and Walt Disney, man. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Custom-made theater, the best directors in the world, the best script writers in the world, and the vault, the Disney animation vault. Think about that. Like, that's how much depth of riches are there. And in the end, it's like, oh, the main character is a pencil, and the depth of that is that they have a eraser for a hat, and that really bugged me. I was like, how is it that like the height of art? Whether you liked La Nuba or not. I'm gonna say, Franco gave himself in that show. Like Franco explored and risked and dared in La Nuba. Whether you liked it or not, I don't care if you hated it or whatever. Or whoever liked it or hated it, doesn't matter. Franco tried something with La Nuba. I think it worked. I appreciated that he was trying to do something there. So when I heard about this kind of drawn to life show, main character is a pencil. It was a young girl and her sidekick was a pencil, whatever. And I was just like, I don't get it. It's the same as me putting on the red bowler hat. It's the same as the Indiana Jones fedora. And then you just juggle the clubs like you always juggle the clubs. And so I wrote John Gilkey out of nowhere. I'm old friends with John, but I had to talk.
He's connected to Cirque in a way.
Yeah, he was a Cirque du Soleil clown for many, and the main character of Kidam and many other. He was originated one of the main characters in Verkai and a bunch of other shows too. So yeah, it wasn't so random to write him about Soleil, but I hadn't talked to him in years, and this is pretty non sequitur. So I just write John, and I'm like, dude, this is really annoying me. Like, I don't understand. How can Cirque du Soleil and Disney put like a main character as just this guy with a pink hat on and be like, it's a pencil and now we're done. That's our creation. And John wrote me back a really cool thing. He said, the premise of the theme being animation and that the main character would be a pencil, that's not to be dismissed. That's not worthless. Because I was totally saying, well, this is the stupid, most shallow. Oh, Frodo, let's do a show about animation. Let's brainstorm. What are the different parts of animation? Well, we got paper and what else? Oh, pencil. Oh, you could be a pencil. Like, it's a pretty shallow process. Like, I was implying this process was pretty shallow. And John was like, well, it's not a worthless idea at all to say that, like, you're doing a show with animation and the main character is a pencil. He's like, why not? Pencil is like the main writing tool of animation. It's something, he goes, it's something that everybody in the audience can relate to. Like, it's an obvious thing. And his point was like, you shouldn't run away from the obvious things, even if it wasn't such a deep process. He's like, you can piggyback and you can jump on people's experiences and knowledge and go, oh yeah, in animation, you use a pencil. He said the problem comes that basically if Cirque du Soleil lets that person actually be a pencil or not. And I thought that was so cool. And what he meant was, probably I haven't seen the show. I don't even know if the pencil is still in the show. But if we look at previous examples of Cirque du Soleil's work and style and how they incorporate characters and the narrative in the show, it's pretty shallow. It's a little bit of a veneer, we could say.
Spectacle.
For the most part, we could think that the pencil isn't going to be really deeply integrated. And John said, for the most part, they probably won't let the guy actually be a pencil. I was like, what are you talking about, man? What do you mean he's not a real pencil? He's like, no, but what if he took it seriously? What if you gave somebody the job and said, you're a pencil, but for real? And you took that as deeply as you could. And that would be an amazing show. And I was like, yeah, it would. Like, what if you went to see a show by Cirque du Soleil and Walt Disney and there was a guy who was actually a pencil? That was John. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. That was like John's point. That was like, it doesn't have to be shallow. It doesn't have to just be a surface. It doesn't just have to be the fedora and you just do the normal juggling as you normally do it, that this guy did. John's point is, of course, you got to wear the fedora and do the Indiana Jones juggling. And then of course it's going to push the question to, well, what's the Indiana Jones juggling? And you go, exactly. Yeah. That's the secret. But this idea that, like, can you imagine there's a guy in Florida right now on stage who's actually trying to be a pencil? That would be pretty messed up. Like, that'd be pretty far out.
I totally agree with Gilky, because you were very upset about the pencil, and I'm like, oh, well, with Disney or even with Pixar, it's like, okay, so the main character is a lamp or whatever,
right?
And the great skill of Pixar or Disney in when it works is that the little candelabra in Beauty and the Beast becomes the thing that you genuinely care about. And that is part of what Disney kind of does, taking these. So when I first kind of went, it's Disney and Cirque du Soleil doing a collaboration, and I thought too that I don't know what you could do with a pencil, but just like, I don't know who I talked to this about. Was it you or just this? Sometimes when you are standing on stage and then something happens, and then the first thing that comes into my mind, I think, oh, that's generic, so then you don't say it. And every now and then when I've gone to Norway or whatever, and I am in a place where I somehow just feel free when I'm doing an event for someone here, and I'm translating in my head some generic street line or some line that just comes into my head, and then it kills. Even though I feel like I just got a bit dirty. But what I did was to apply something that I know into a real life situation. No,
you were talking about that with me. Yeah, you said that the other day.
So anyway, there's something about then that, like, taking the starting point of what actually it happens with, that bit, like going to pencil, could be an incredible thing. I don't quite understand... he could, or you could maybe unpack more what it means to really be a pencil, but it's partly enough just to go, like, what would it really be like? Would he be walking on one point shoe, or like what?
There you go.
So it's just that
now we're having a real conversation about it.
So like,
now it's not just
mean? Yeah.
It's not just an excuse.
Will there be a line traipsing after him in motion projection after him, so that
how about this?
By the end, everywhere he walked has created a picture.
Exactly. How about this? Does the stupid rubber hat actually erase pencil? I mean,
does it actually erase anything at all?
That's what I'm saying.
Does he fall over and erase half?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, already now we're having a deeper discussion than when I first could have envisioned.
Yeah. So
this silly person wearing a pink hat. And you go, oh, because it just relates back straight to this Indiana Jones juggling or this youth circus kind of.
Is it just a pencil, and then the pencil is it's just your daughter wearing a pink hat,
and you just go,
and that's it, and you go, oh, that's cute,
and
nice
you go,
one.
oh, Disney animation, oh, there's a pencil, and it's like that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring that up is because this idea of like you can't just juggle, and then you kind of your first thing is in one way to, I don't want to say again slap meaning onto it or try to slap some extra layers to it. But those you have to be consequent with it. I think you could do more damage by trying to dress up, and the for example the juggling and not following through, like the Indiana Jones thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I saw that dude, was it entertaining? No, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe it wasn't to you, but maybe somebody out there was just like
no,
excited.
No, what? No, hold on now. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. Hold on. Frodo, listen, I am glad.
This was objectively not in the genre of good.
No, listen, here's the thing. I can explain it. I'm glad I saw his act. You know what was good about his act? Not the fedora. No, but seriously.
The juggling was the good bit.
Or he was the good bit. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But I see this all the time. People will do a performance and they will have some overt characteristic to the performance, either whether it's the theme music or it's Indiana Jones or it's Disney's Frozen or you're a pencil. I don't care. Pick something. Or you're a tennis player going through two tennis rackets. I don't care what it is. What you want to do is you want to walk away from that act and you want to have a conversation with a real person or an imaginary person. It doesn't matter. The conversation, which means you have it with yourself, and you say, man, I really enjoyed that. Okay, why did I enjoy that? And if you walk away from this dude, go, well, it was amazing. The first thing out of your mouth, you go, because he had a bullwhip on his hip. There you go. Now he kind of cracked something with that Indiana Jones thing. Not a chance when I saw that act. Nobody talked. It was just a stupid excuse for him to be there. It was just do you know what I mean? It was like a collective kind of agreement of like, we all have to wear this. We all have to watch him wearing this hat so he can be on stage. Literally. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like we all kind of just agree that this is, well, he's going to wear the hat so he can, because he can't just juggle. But he's going to wear the hat and we're going to love him for him. We're going to love him for the juggling he did. But I think about this a lot. I really think about it. I go see these shows, a lot of contemporary circus shows. And here's a great example. In Sweden, there's been a lot of shows where circus has been combined with opera.
Yeah.
Circus has been combined with theater because, of course, there's the whole economic structure of politics of why that gets bought and sold. And here's the thing, man. You go see the show, or you go see a show and there's a theme like you're going to do the theme of recycling, or you're going to do a theme of climate change, or what, It's pretty trendy right now to do these contemporary circus shows with themes. And when you walk away from that show and you ask somebody from the general public, or you ask yourself, or you ask your friend, you're going to have a discussion. And what you can do is you can say, first of all, did I like the show? You go, I'm glad I saw it. I liked it. Okay, why did you like it? Man, I just want to say, at least in my experience, it's never the number one thing is, man, I like that opera because the bassoon player did a really fast trill at minute 2 hour and 38 minutes. It's always like, oh, I love the opera because the teeterboard act, they did a crazy sequence with like triples back to the board, right? That's the value there. And that's what irks me, or that's what makes me confused, or makes this whole conversation about you can't just juggle. Because just juggling, you can't just teeterboard, you can't just circus, you can't just sword swallow, you can't just tap dance, you can't just whatever the skill is. Because I think these skills are powerful. When people go see circus and opera, I just saw one here in Helsinki, the circus opera here in Helsinki. People in the audience were losing their minds. They were not losing their minds because they were hearing Carmen Burana for the 100th time. They were losing their minds because somebody did a double layout back to a Russian bar. That was powerful. That was something meaningful to them, right? And I'm not saying the music detracted, and I'm not saying that the situation...
but that was all part of the set and the setting of the thing, and it's been elevated or combined with high art, like opera is pretty sort of high art. So now it's in that setting, and you get the feeling, oh, we're getting the best in the world, and then you see it more clearly because it's in that thing, and they don't have to sell the show in it's not in traditional circus in a small town or whatever, even though that act might be seen in that.
It's kind of ironic then that all of the accoutrements or like the decoration around the circus allows the circus to just be circus, and have the impact as
but maybe to a certain, like, I don't know how that guy juggling there with the fedora and Indiana Jones, maybe though at the event or whatever they would book him because he did that, and then those people would get to see juggling, and it was the fedora that made them enjoy it, just like they listen to the opera, and then you do the things, and then they see the skills for what it was, because you have that hook that somehow grabs them. You have the music and you have that thing. Now,
that's the function of having it even be in front of their eyes.
Yeah, so that guy got the gig because he wasn't just a juggler.
Exactly.
He was Indiana Jones doing the Indiana Jones.
And that goes back to that idea of like in this phrase of like you can't just juggle, or you can't just sword swallow, or you can't just whatever. It also goes back to that, again, the unspoken parts of that, of like, what is the mechanism by which work is seen? And part of that is the whole political, we've been talking about this lately too, the business side, the method by which, work is produced.
The politics and all this sort of...
And the trends and the trends.
Trends within performance and trends within the
networks.
And also the trends in the world.
Yeah, the zeitgeist of what's going on right now. Yeah, totally. And that allows work to be accessible in different ways. So maybe, and it goes back to that idea of the genre of good, right? It's like people don't hate juggling, people don't like it, but they like things that are good. And if you can get that good thing in front of their eyes, that's also part of the game. That's also part of the thing. Like you can't, like, I never thought about it like that. That's great. The phrase "you can't just juggle" also implies the business side. Right, like that. I can totally relate to that. That's totally good advice, actually. Hey, you can't just juggle. You also have to like send an email and maybe have a website or print a business card or like that's
and
also funny.
You have to distinguish yourself out as to not just be, here's a guy that juggles, but why would we book this particular guy? That's marketing kind of going. Why would I book this guy? I
love that.
Oh, and it's because he does.
I love that.
He does juggling like this, or he does most rings in the world, or it's like Eric talked about this. So like when you were booked because you were the guy that did 8 balls. So
we're not living in that world anymore. But back 100 years ago, it was like that.
He was
You're the guy who did pirouettes.
He was the guy that invented doing pirouettes. He juggled and did pirouettes. Then he did that, and you're going like, oh wow, I've never seen that before.
It's like you're the one who there's the guy who did club kick-ups. Yeah, and like that was like, this one guy who did club kick-ups.
So then that's become a thing. So
I really wish when I was 8 or 9 or 10 or 16 or 18 or whatever, that guy in France who yelled at me, how cool would that have been if they were like, hey, you can't just juggle, you also have to be yourself. Man, that would have changed my life.
Yeah.
Would have changed my life.
All right. Now that's a little bit of a rapid cut there, because the next part of this exciting, wide-ranging conversation will wrap up next episode with a additional bonus question. He added this right towards the end, and we'd already sort of run out of the time that we wanted to spend, but we did one more question, and it went on for quite a while, as might not surprise you. And next episode we will talk about that, and he really sort of digs into my process, not just of creating an act, but he really asks some questions about my process, which integrates my everyday life and what I read, what I think, what I do, what poetry and movies and all this. How do I relate this directly to my work? And so next episode we will be talking about that. And until that time, if you want to buy me a virtual coffee, you can do that at Captain Frodo at buymeacoffee.com/Captain Frodo. And if you want to get yourself a sweet hoodie or a sweet t-shirt, or you want to get a lovely singlet for somebody you love, then you can do that. You'll find details for that. It's too long and too complicated of an email address or whatever internet address for you to take down as I'm saying it here. So just look in the show notes. And until next time, take care of yourself. and those you love. And I really hope to see you along the way.